A warm welcome to you all. It's really exciting to meet you all virtually through this webinar. So, everybody settle down. The session will begin soon. So, let me give you guys a brief on what exactly HigherEd for All does. We conduct education and career guidance starting from ninth grade students till working professionals. And we have various skill tests for different categories, which helps them understand their skill sets, interests, and abilities. Then this in turn will help them identify their right career. So please do check out our website, refer to your friends and family. Now let me give you some instructions for the webinar today. If you had attended online classes, then you know exactly what instructions I will give. Keep yourself muted, turn on your videos, make use of chat to drop your queries. Let me repeat that again. Keep yourself muted, turn on your videos, and make use of chat to drop your queries. All right. So, hope everything is precise to everyone. Now, let me welcome our speaker for the event, Mr. Moti Joseph. He's a director at HigherEd for All. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Shubha, for inviting me and introducing me. A very warm good morning, good afternoon to everybody who has joined from various places. And thanks for taking your time uh, to go through this webinar. And I believe that it will prove to be useful to you. Okay, so with that, let's start. And I've put this seminar into three sections mainly. Okay, so the first one is what is a goal and what are its types? And the second one is how to make our goals effective. And the third one is the outcomes of structuring a proper goal. Okay, so this is how I've structured today's presentation. And moving on, let's look at the definition of the term goal. Okay, so goal is not something that is unfamiliar because we are quite familiar with the term goal, especially with the football fever going on around us. Okay, so coming back, goal, right? So as you see on the screen, it is a goal is an objective or target that someone is trying to reach or achieve with some kind of effort and determination. Okay, so this is what, or this is how the term goal is defined as. And probably even if people are not familiar or not used to the term goal, they make use of the term goal in different aspects using different synonyms. For example, endpoint, target, intention, destination, mission, ambition, aim. And so these are some of the other things which people synonymously use for the term goal. And what happens when we don't set a goal? And every time we fail to set a goal, we always get disappointed results. Okay, so that's why we say that we ought to have a goal. So moving on, I'd like to ask, what is your goal? Okay, so nobody can say that we don't have a goal. And goal actually differs from one individual to another. And it probably we can say that it differs with our situations or lifestyle and the kind of role models which we have and our peers as well. Okay, right. So now I want you to define your goal in a word. Okay, so as you keep answering, these are some of the types of goals which we have, which we generally see. For example, career goals that deals with, it could be about getting a degree or improving your job performance or gaining a new skill or becoming an expert on a specific field, so on and so forth. And similarly, there are also financial goals where people think of improving their lifestyle financially. Okay, so it could be about earning more salary or building up a side hustle or affording to buy a new house or a new electronic gadget or anything in terms of financial aspects. And then we also have personal development goals, and it's more about being self-satisfied. Okay, so there are people who would love to, stay fit and healthy by taking some effort, okay, and going to a gym or anywhere. Okay, so that is with regard to personal development goals. And then we also have people who set up spiritual goals for themselves. Okay, spirituality is something that everybody loves. And it could be about being more mindful of their circumstances or situations, or it could be about praying every day and volunteering regularly as well. So these are some of the types of goals which you and I have, or most of the people around us actually have. Okay, so I asked you to list down, define your goal in a word, isn't it? And I'm sure that you all would have had some kind of goals in the past. Okay, so now I want you to list down all the goals that you have set in the past. Okay, and and I also want you to mark it whether it was a short-term goal or a long-term goal. Okay, so first task is to jot down all the goals that you have planned in the past, and the second one is to point out whether it was a short term or a long term goal. And one more task, you should also check whether you actually achieved it. Okay, because a lot of people take decisions, right? So, or perhaps we have the habit of keeping or setting goals, but we don't necessarily achieve that. Okay, so this will probably help you to identify whether you've achieved all the goals that you've set in the past, or you want to rework on it, or you want to set a new goal. So that's why I asked you to write down all the goals and then think whether it was a short term or a long term goal. And then you should also know whether you have achieved it. I hope you have jotted down all these things. And in case you have done that, could you just give me a thumbs up so that I'll know whether you have done it or not? Okay. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. One, two, three. All right. Okay. So that's good. Okay. So coming back, we all would have had some goals in the past. Okay. Right. And sometimes we would have achieved it, or sometimes we would have failed to achieve it. Okay. So that doesn't matter. And today we are going to look at how we can achieve a goal, or what are the different methods in which we can complete a task or goal in an appropriate time. Okay, moving ahead, we have two characters here. One is Zara and the other one is Sid. So two are distinct personalities and they have their own way of dealing with things. Okay, so looking at Sarah, she knows her destination. Every time she makes a goal, she knows that this is what she's going to do. Whereas talking about Sid, he's just the opposite. He doesn't have any specific destination at all. And again, coming back to Sarah, she is determined and she knows that she will complete and that she has to complete her task. Whereas Sid, he's least bothered whether he's going to complete it or not. And Sarah, again, she keeps track of the progression. In fact, she knows where she stands. Okay, so every time she takes up a goal or she sets a goal, she knows how much she has covered and how much she needs to cover in the coming days. Whereas Sid is just the opposite. And Sarah, again, she spends quality time in preparation. Okay, so she doesn't simply set a goal, rather, she takes or she spends quality time in doing enough preparation to achieve that particular goal. Okay, and Sid, again, is just the opposite. And Sarah, again, she has an accountability partner. Okay, so we'll talk more about accountability partner in the coming slides. Whereas Sid, he doesn't have any accountable partner. Okay, so I hope you're able to observe the difference between Sarah and Sid, and you can also relate the characteristics of both these people to your lifestyle as well. Okay, so there are many Sarahs and Sids among us. All right. So moving ahead, see, just like everything that is becoming smart or smarter these days, it's also essential for us to make our goals smart. Okay, so that's the trending thing actually. Okay, whether you take a phone or you take any electronical gadget or anything, electrical gadget, anything, or vehicles, everything is becoming smart day by day. Okay, so just like that, we should also make our goals smart. Now, what does this smart mean? This is how it is defined, where S stands for specific, which means we ought to be specific about the goal and we should ensure that it has some expected outcome. Okay, as to why exactly are we planning to set a goal. Okay, so we have to be specific. For example, if you want to become a higher official in an office, okay, so you should know that that's what I'm gonna become. Okay, so which means you are specific about your goal. And the next one, M stands for measurable, right? So here we should be able to measure how far is our goal. Okay, so in one of the previous slides, I said that we have short-term goals and long-term goals. Okay, right? So that helps us to measure how much time we have got or how much we have come across. Okay, so that's about being or having a measurable goal, and then we should ensure that it our goals are achievable. Okay, so there are so many people who desire on some goals and they'll be dreaming, but it's not going to be achieved. Okay, so which means they have not taken the right steps at the right moment, and therefore it's not achievable. Okay, so you should ensure that our goals are achievable. And then coming to the next letter R, it stands for realistic. Okay, right. So realistic, you can relate it with achievable, right? So we don't simply dream, but we should ensure that that becomes a reality, right? So we are not supposed to be disappointed on having a goal. Rather, we are supposed to take pride that we have achieved something. Okay, so that's why our goal should be realistic. And then timely. Okay, so we need to have a realistic time frame as well. For example, if you're about to complete your course in 3 years, okay, so of course, right, any course will have a specific span of time, right? Let's say that some university degrees will have 3 years, whereas some will have 4 years, which means in that amount of time we are supposed to complete that, which means that is a realistic time frame. Similarly, our goal should also have a realistic time. Now, I've mentioned what smart goals exactly mean. Now, how do we make our goals smart? Okay, let's see how to make our goals smart. Okay, so first thing we need to look at is we need to have direction, we need to have a sense of purpose, and then we should also have destination as well. So, what is direction exactly? Okay, so it's the path or way in which we are about to travel towards achieving our goal. Okay, so that is with regard to direction. And coming to purpose, it's nothing but why exactly are you setting that particular goal? For example, you want to learn a new language. Okay, why are you learning a new language? It could be to go to a new country or to learn a new culture or to make new friends, so on and so forth. Okay, so there must be a purpose in which you are setting a goal. And then comes destination. Where exactly are you headed? Okay, so in the coming slides, we'll look more about it. So the first one is direction. Okay, so it's always essential or important for us to know the direction in which we are actually heading, right? So because every time we go to a junction or go to roads, there are multiple directions, right? And depending on which destination we are supposed to go, we are supposed to select a direction. Okay, so directions are made, right? Okay, and this is another problem which we have with regard to direction. Okay, so look at the person on the left, right? So he's standing below a post, a destination or a signpost, and it's actually hazy, right? So he doesn't have a clear image, and therefore it's difficult for him to choose which direction is supposed to go. And similarly, if you look at the image on the right again, it has multiple destinations, and you are perhaps confused. So our directions, it could be hazy, or sometimes we can have multiple directions, which will lead us to confusion. And this perhaps stops us from moving forward. Okay, so when we don't have limited options and when the options are umpteen, we are confused. Okay, so that is with regard to this. And what are we supposed to do if our directions are hazy or if it's clouded or if we have multiple directions? So this is what we're supposed to do. First, we should have an aerial or eagle view, right? So every time we have multiple options, options in front of us, we are supposed to have an aerial view. I hope you're all aware of, having an aerial or eagle view. Okay, for example, once you complete your 10th standard, right? So there are many options which you can take up. Okay, so you can become an engineer, or you can become a doctor, you can become a psychologist, journalist, so on and so forth. Right? And you need to look into all these things and where it actually narrows down. Okay, so first you should have an eagle view, and then you should narrow it down. For example, you need to become an engineer. Now that you have decided that you want to become an engineer, the next step is to enroll for an engineering related course. Or if you want to become a pilot, again, you want to do something related to aeronautical engineering. Okay, so that's with regard to narrowing down. And finally, you choose. And again, when you decide that you need to become an engineer, the options are again myriad, right? So you can become a chemical engineer, you can become a computer engineer, again, specifically software engineer, right? Civil engineer, right? So on and so forth. So you have to be specific about what exactly are you choosing. Okay, so that is with regard to having a clear perspective of the direction in which you are heading to. Moving on, we have purpose. What exactly is purpose? Right. So purpose, a goal actually exists to serve a purpose and not act as a purpose. Okay, so we should have a sense of feeling why exactly are we becoming something. Okay, for example, let's take a doctor. A doctor perhaps would take up that profession in order to serve people. Serving could be one option. And if you take a business person, he could become a business person in order to become, more rich or make more money for himself. So these are some of the purposes which we can actually think of. Journalism, right? And again, why exactly is somebody becoming a journalist? Okay, so we should have a sense of purpose every time we frame our goal. Okay, and then comes destination. This is one important point. Okay, so everything needs to have a destination. And one famous analogy that I always use is that of an aeroplane. Okay, so every time an aeroplane takes off, the pilot, the passengers, all will be sure of the destination in which the aeroplane is heading to. Okay, so just like an aeroplane or pilot or passengers who are traveling in an aeroplane or flight, we should be aware of the destination which we are heading to. So if we don't have a destination, we are ending up in no man's land. That's why this could actually help you, right? So every time you think of destination, you can always think about an aeroplane, which never takes off without setting a destination. And again, so destination, it could be about setting realistic deadlines. Okay, so every time you decide something, right, you have realistic deadlines, and therefore you can reach your goal or you can achieve your goal. And the next thing you need to consider is focus. This image, I hope most of you can relate it with. Right, so what is the specialty of this particular poster? Can somebody say what's special about this particular poster? This is Lionel Messi, right? So most of us would have watched him for the last couple of weeks or so. Okay, so his focus was to win the World Cup, to win the World Cup title for his country, Argentina. Okay, so he was focused and therefore he could achieve that. Right. And there were a lot of predictions before the World Cup and when the World Cup was going on. And right till the last moment, till the last whistle was blown, there were a lot of speculations and there were a lot of lot of things happening around us. Okay, so who would rise the World Cup? Who would win the World Cup? Who would score the winning goal? So on and so forth. It's good that most of the people or majority of the people across the globe said that Messi is gonna lift the cup or Argentina is gonna lift the cup, and eventually it did happen. And what's the secret behind that? They were focused. Okay, so they were focused on completing or achieving their goal. So that was the one and only goal or one and only aim which they had. Okay. So when you have focus on a particular goal, it helps you to save time. Okay. You know that this is what you're gonna do, and you don't have to waste energy unwantedly. And it also gives you better results in a better amount of time. Okay. So if you're focused, you can become successful. Okay. Moving on is we have another interesting personality here. So this person again. So he was another popular figure in the World Cup final, Mbappe. So he was a challenging player, right? And again, right, it's not that only Lionel Messi had the focus on winning the World Cup, right? So just like Lionel Messi, there were other players as well, and in fact, the entire team that had a focus on winning the World Cup. What makes both these players special is that they were completely focused. Perhaps we can say that their level of focus was beyond the level of other players. That's what makes both these players special. Okay, so you need to remember that you need to have focus on your goals. Okay, and the next one is you should ensure that your goals are productive. Okay, so what does it mean to be productive, or how do we make our goals productive? We should ensure that we break down our goals into small sections. Let's say that we can set daily targets, or perhaps weekly, or monthly, quarterly, yearly, so on and so forth. Okay, so when we break down all our goals into smaller sections, we can focus on the immediate thing to work on. Right? For example, if you want to become a doctor, right? The first step is to clear, as a school student, the first step is to clear grade 10. And then he or she should enroll in a better stream, for example, science stream. And once he or she completes that, he or she should take up entrance examinations and enroll for medicine related course. Okay. So all these are time frames which we can have, right? So for example, if clearing 10th grade is the first thing that you ought to do, then you need to prepare for that. And in the meanwhile, if you think that, oh my God, I want to become a doctor, am I going to become a doctor? You'll get confused. So that's why we say that you should set timely goals, or you should break down your goals into small or minute particles. And that will actually help you to enjoy all your milestones. Okay, so this is part of becoming or making your goals smarter. Our goals or smart goals should have clarity. And there's a researcher called Edwin Locke. Okay, so he says that individuals who set specific or difficult goals perform better than those who set general or easy goals. Okay, so we should set goals that are concrete, and at the same time, we should ensure that we are going towards that. We are going to achieve that, right? So I'm not telling you that we set some easy goal and see if you are able to achieve it. No, make your goal concrete, which means it should be clear, right? So you should have a clear cut idea about it. And he also talks about five different principles when it comes to goal setting, like clarity, challenge, commitment, feedback, and task completion, so on and so forth. Okay, so now let's talk about clarity. What exactly does clarity mean? So clarity means that we define our goal in a clear-cut manner. Okay, so our goal should have a proper plan or an exact plan. Okay, for example, if you want to do MBA, you should know that, okay, this is what I'm going to choose. And what exactly am I going to do in MBA? Am I going to become an HR or marketing, so on and so forth? And MBA is there in almost all the fields. So earlier it was said that it is related or specifically only with regard to business field, more about marketing. But right now it's mirrored. Okay, so we need to have a clear cut idea about our goal. You can think of becoming a doctor, a pilot, an engineer, a photographer, journalist, psychologist, so on and so forth. Right? So which means it's specific. It's clear that this is what you are going to become, or this is what I'm going to become. And then comes accountability. So this is one of the most important things when it comes to achieving any kind of goals. First thing is we ought to be honest. Okay, so this is something which is common for anything, not just with goals alone, we ought to be an honest person, right? So we're not supposed to disappoint anybody. And the second one is we should stick to deadlines. If you decide that you're going to complete something within 15 days or 1 month, you have to stick to that. You should be able to stick to your deadlines and micro goals. Okay, so that again is with regard to setting up minute or breaking your goals into minute section. And comes the next important thing. You should have an accountability buddy. So now, who is this accountability buddy? It could be one of your colleague, or it could be your sibling, or it could be your parents, or it could also be your faculty members who are handling subjects for you at your school or college or university or anything. Now, why is it important to have an accountability buddy? Right? So, what does this accountability buddy do? Accountability buddy ensures that we are not lethargic. Okay, so now I want you to let me know whether you all have an accountability partner. Okay, so let me see how many of you have accountability partner. You should try to have an accountability partner or accountability buddy. So it's just like having a manager. Okay, so what does a manager do? Manager assigns tasks to you, or your tutor assigns a task to you, and then ensures that you complete that task or achieve that task on time. So it's just like having or doing homework and reporting or submitting it to your tutor. Okay, right? So when you know that you're supposed to complete it on time, you will definitely do that. So in order to achieve our goals, we have to have similar mechanisms as well. Okay, so we need to have somebody who will be accountable for all these things, right? Okay, so and sometimes it can be two ways as well. For example, you have a close friend. Okay, so you can have your own goals and have your friend as the accountability buddy. And similarly, the other person can have you as the accountability buddy, which means it's beneficial for both of you. And finally, you're supposed to review each and every task that you do. Okay, so again, going back to short term and long term goals, right? So you should be able to assess whether you've completed it or how much time it would require. So review again, it's very, very essential. So moving on, I'd like to share with you about different kinds of decision making or decision makers. So there are three major kinds of decision making or decision makers. So the first one is inactive decision making or inactive decision makers. Okay, so these are people who never really take any decision. Okay, every time you tell them something, you tell them to complete the homework or do some task, they'll say, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Let me do it towards the end of the day, or let me do it next month. Okay, so they are lethargic about their decisions and they procrastinate it, and therefore they end up doing nothing. An active decision maker, we came across two characters initially. One is Sarah and the other one is Sid. Okay, so I want you to relate this with one of those characters, and you can also relate it with yourself. Okay, so whether you're someone who procrastinates your decision or you act on it instantly. So coming to the second kind, we have reactive decision makers. Okay, so reactive decision makers are people who allow peers or parents or siblings to take decisions. Okay, so it could be about anything. It could be about food style or purchasing a new attire or purchasing a new electronic gadget. Anything for that matter. Okay, so you ask them something. Do you want a new mobile phone? They'll say, if you wish. Okay, which means they don't have an idea. Okay, but okay, so they don't have an idea whether they need to have something new or not, whether they need to enroll for a new course or not. Okay, so this is something which most of us struggle with. Okay, so even if you're not reactive decision makers, this is something which we struggle with when it comes to decision making in terms of career, in terms of selecting a course, so on and so forth. Right? So you should be able to have decisions for yourself. Okay, so if you're a reactive decision maker, you probably may end up disappointed or you will regret it at a later point of time. And then comes proactive decision maker. Okay. So proactive decision maker is somebody who plans everything in a systematic manner. I hope you remember all the characteristics of Sarah. Okay. So she was more determined. She used to plan everything. And therefore, we can bring her into this category of proactive decision maker. Okay. Now, how do we become proactive decision makers? Okay, so these are some of the steps we can actually consider. Every time we need to make a decision, the first thing we ought to do is define what exactly is happening. For example, if you're a school student, your focus should be on completing your school. So that's the immediate problem. I'm not telling that it's actually a problem. So that's something which you need to focus on instant. And similarly, if you have completed your graduation or post graduation and you're about to take up a job, you need to think about what are the job options available. So first you need to define what exactly is happening. And then the second one is gather information about that thing. Here again, you're not trying to solve the problem. You're just collecting or gathering information. What exactly can be done? And the third one, you should be able to list down all the pros and cons of the problem. Okay, so if I become this, what am I going to do? Or if I go through this way, what exactly is going to happen? Okay, so we are not supposed to consider only the pros, we are also supposed to take note of all the cons or all the negative things that are likely to happen or that we are likely to encounter. And the next one is develop alternatives. Okay, so now that you have defined your problem, you've gathered information, you've jotted on all the pros and cons of that particular problem, you should be able to develop alternatives. Alternatives, in other words, we can say that we need to have plan B. Right? So that is a primary decision or primary plan. We should also have a secondary plan. Okay, so that's with regard to developing alternatives. And just like how we analyze the major problem or the initial problem, we should be able to analyze it for the alternatives as well. And then what we can do is we can select one of those alternatives and then we can implement it. Okay, for example, let's take students of science background. Okay, so who are into grade 12 and grade 11 and grade 12 or plus one and plus two. Most of the students they play safe in the sense they enroll for science or they take science stream is because they can either become a doctor or become engineer. And if they don't become both of those, they can enroll in different other fields as well. So which means they are having plan E, plan B, and perhaps plan C, D, so on and so forth. They have alternatives as much as possible. Okay, which means we can be flexible. And then we are supposed to implement the alternatives. And before that, first we need to implement the major thing. And if that doesn't work out, we can focus on plan B or the alternatives which we can think of. And once we implement that, then it's time for us to evaluate it. How far have we come across or how far has it worked out? Okay. And based on that, we can make better decisions. Okay, it could be anything. Decision making. I'm not specifically mentioning about becoming a doctor or anything as such. It could be simple decisions like what attire to wear, what color of dress to wear, everything. Each and everything has some kind of process that's happened. Okay, so don't think of all those bombastic things which you need to break your head. You can also consider putting these into or applying these into small activities, which then will eventually help you in taking up better decisions when it comes to larger things. So now that we have discussed how to make our goals smart, what exactly are we getting? It gives good control over our future. Okay, so the first one is it helps us develop a sense of personal satisfaction. Okay, so we can be proud that I have decided this, I planned it, I devised it, I organized it, Okay, I went through this and eventually I completed this. Okay, which means you are supposed to be a proactive decision maker. If you are an inactive decision maker, you cannot have personal satisfaction. If you're a reactive decision maker, you cannot have personal satisfaction. Whereas when you become a proactive decision maker, you can take down on all your decisions. Okay. And the second one is it also helps you be aware of what you're actually going through, which means every time there's a setback or every time there's a problem, you know how to deal with it, how to go about it. And if you don't have a plan, that's it. It's like standing in a dead end. Okay. And the next one is you also know how to go about your priorities, which will help you achieve your goal. Okay. And the reason why I said we need to break down our goals into minute or smaller section is because it will help us to set priorities. Okay. What needs to be completed first? What needs to be completed second? So on and so forth. Okay. And then finally, we are never overwhelmed and therefore we take better decisions. Okay. Better decisions, or perhaps you can say that quality decisions, which we can cherish on forever. Okay. So quality decision, it's not for the time being, rather it's something which will help us to cherish on for a lifetime. Okay. So it could be 50 years, 60 years, so on and so forth. And then it also gives us a sense of motivation and inspiration, not just for us, for others as well. So every time we are organized, every time we know that, okay, this is how we are going to go about our goal, it creates motivation within ourselves, and at the same time, it motivates others as okay. Right. So now that I've covered most of the aspects here, I want you to follow, and again, following, you can either follow one of the methodologies or all the methodologies that we have listed. Okay. So if you follow all these things, you can definitely achieve your goal. Okay, so I'd like to conclude with a quote of C.S. Lewis, which goes this way: "You are never too old or too late to set another goal or to dream a new dream." Okay, right? So when it comes to goal setting, right, I can perhaps relate it with New Year. Okay, every New Year we come up with New Year resolutions, but are we achieving it? Okay, so we may have failed multiple times. And at one point of time, there are people who say that, okay, it's not working out. So let me not take any decision or let me not make any New Year resolution again. Okay. Let that not be your decision this time. Okay. So let's try to bring in a change, set up new resolutions, set up new goals. You can definitely achieve it. Okay, so with that, I would like to conclude. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to uh, ask me questions.
Thank you, Motisa, for this wonderful session. And thank you, everybody, for attending. So please spend 2 minutes with us and give us your valuable feedbacks. The link is in the chat box. So please go ahead and give your feedbacks.